It was a revelation. It was gigantic. It filled our entire window.
For decades, astronauts have spoken of space not just as a place of wonder, but as a void that hides secrets, shadows, and whispers of things we can't explain. Some of the most experienced space travelers have said things that give even alien enthusiasts chills. Reports of knocking sounds on their spacecraft, unidentifiable metallic shapes drifting nearby, and eerie space music echoing in their headsets. These are not sci-fi scripts. These are real testimonies from real people who flew beyond Earth. But are these stories real or made up? To find out the truth, let's take a look at the stories of these strange incidents. The knocks. When China's first astronaut, Yang Liwei, launched into space aboard Shenzhou 5 on October 16, 2003. He expected weightlessness, darkness, and silence. But what he heard was none of those things. He heard a knocking, soft, deliberate, and deeply unnerving. It didn't sound like an alarm or system warning. It sounded like someone, or something, was knocking on the outside of his capsule. In a later interview, Yang described it in chilling detail. It neither came from outside nor inside the spaceship, but sounded like someone was knocking the body of the spaceship, just as knocking an iron bucket with a wooden hammer. He said it appeared from time to time, random and unpredictable. He admits he was spooked. He shifted in his seat, leaned toward the porthole, and searched, but saw nothing. No shadow, no floating debris, no meteor, just the emptiness of space and the echo of his own unease. Back on Earth, he told technicians and engineers about it. They tried to replicate the sound in tests. They ran simulations, used instruments. They listened for banging, tapping, or any anomaly. But they never got the same knock again. What makes it even more mysterious, later missions reported the same noise. Astronauts aboard Shenzhou 6 and Shenzhou 7 said they heard similar knocks. Before their missions, Yang reportedly told them not to worry. He called the sound normal, strangely routine in its own way. Back at Mission Control, scientists debated. Were these just tiny deformations in the capsule's walls? Something caused by air pressure shifts or temperature changes in the vacuum of space? One explanation floated by engineers. As pressure inside the module dropped, metal might warp and flex, making sounds that echo like knocking. If that's true, it's deeply humanizing. A whisper from the craft itself, born not of alien contact, but of the vessel reacting to the harshness of space. But for Yang, floating alone at hundreds of kilometers above Earth, the sound wasn't just a technical quirk. It felt like company, or a warning. Unpredictable, inexplicable. Floating hundreds of kilometers above Earth, he faced something no one could clearly explain. The knocks came and went, unpredictable, mysterious, and deeply humanizing. For someone alone in space, a sound like that feels like a visitor or a warning. And this is just the beginning. Stick around, because what the next astronaut saw will make your skin crawl. The space snake. In the expanse of space, aboard one of NASA's most iconic vehicles, Story Musgrave saw something he could not fully explain. A long shape drifting just outside his shuttle's window. Musgrave, the only astronaut to fly on all 5 space shuttles, claimed this thing was not a glint of metal, but something far more organic. A snake-like form, alive in its motion. In his own words, he described it as 6, 7, 8 feet long, rubbery, because it has internal waves in it, and it follows you for a rather long period of time. This wasn't a momentary flare or a trick of light. Musgrave said this form moved with purpose, almost as though it were aware of the shuttle, tracking alongside. He refused to dismiss it as just space debris or miscategorized reflection. Instead, he considered a more unsettling possibility: primitive life. He speculated not that this snake was a star visitor with intelligence, but perhaps something far simpler: single-cell organisms, protein-based life, or a creature from a domain of biology we have never encountered. Because Musgrave was a scientist and not given to fantasy, his certainty demands attention. He didn't frame it like a sci-fi hallucination. He called it what it looked like: a snake. But he also admitted that the cosmos might not be empty, that it could harbor life forms not mechanical or artificial, but living, drifting, very alien to human expectations. Skeptics and scientists have not dismissed him entirely. Some argue the shape could have been a rubber seal or a piece of thermal blanket shed from the shuttle, floating in microgravity, rotating, and catching sunlight in odd ways. In zero-G, debris doesn't tumble predictably. It drifts, stretches, spins, and sometimes appears to swim alongside a vehicle. But Musgrave remained convinced this wasn't just trash climbing alongside the shuttle. He insisted it matched the shuttle's path, as if curious. Picture this: you float in the quiet blackness, Earth a distant marble behind you, and outside your window glides something that feels alive, not blinking or flashing, but undulating softly in the void. The tension this idea creates lingers in your mind long after you land. And if you think that's strange, the next story, from Apollo 10, will make your spine tingle. Music in space. When Apollo 10 astronauts Eugene Cernan, Thomas Stafford, and John Young passed over the moon's far side, a stretch of lunar rock permanently out of contact with Earth, they heard something that defied explanation. In the dark silence of that hidden hemisphere, their instruments began picking up an eerie, high-pitched whistling sound. According to mission audio and transcripts, they weren't just hearing static or a system glitch. The tone carried melody, an almost musical quality that unsettled the trio. Stafford confirmed he heard it too. Young leaned in, asking quietly, "Did you hear that whistling sound too?" To which Cernan replied, "Sounds like, outer space-type music." The conversations reflect more than surprise. They reflect real concern. "We're going to have to find out about that," Young said, before adding, "Nobody will believe us." Sometime later, Cernan reflected on it more plainly. "That eerie music is what's bothering me. Who's going to believe it?" NASA's official explanation, once the recordings were declassified decades later, was technical: radio interference. According to the agency and mission experts, the whistling could have come from overlapping VHF radio signals between the lunar module and the command module, especially during the critical period when those two vehicles weren't physically locked together. Yet, not everyone buys the just noise theory. Al Worden, Apollo 15's command module pilot, expressed skepticism. "Logic tells me if there was something recorded, then there was something there," he said. The strange melodic whine, he argued, couldn't be dismissed so easily. Listening to their recorded voices today, you can feel the isolation, the distance, the awe. 3 men orbiting the far side of the moon, cut off from Earth, enveloped in darkness, hearing something that might be more than just electronics. In that moment, space wasn't just the final frontier. It was a theater, playing a melody written by the unknown. And if that sounds uncanny, wait until you hear what came next. Flashing lights. Some of the eeriest messages from space don't come through the radio. They come inside the astronaut's mind. During Apollo missions, and later during long stays in orbit, multiple astronauts reported flashes of light, even when their eyes were tightly closed. They were not dreams. These were real, physical events, In the darkness of their spacecraft cabins, astronauts describe these light effects as spots, streaks, or clouds of light. On Apollo 15, for example, the crew deliberately sat in blindfolds and called out when they saw the flashes. One report, about 0.5 to 2 light flashes per minute, averaged over the dark session. Why does this happen? Scientists have traced the cause to cosmic rays, extremely high-energy charged particles from space that penetrate the skull, pass through the eyeball, and trigger the retina or visual centers. In effect, the astronauts are seeing the universe itself, particles from the depths of space lighting up their visual system. One particularly revealing experiment was called ALFMED, Apollo Light Flash Moving Emulsion Detector. On Apollo 17, astronaut Harrison Jack Schmitt wore a specialized detector over his eyes while his colleagues were blindfolded. The device recorded high-energy particles, while the blindfolded crew reported what they saw: flashes at a surprisingly steady rate. Scientific analysis supports this. Research suggests some of the light flashes are caused by Cherenkov radiation. When a charged particle travels faster than light in a medium, like the eye, it produces a visible light flash. Others believe direct ionization of the retina or visual cortex is also possible. For the astronauts, though, these are more than just data points. Imagine lying in a tiny capsule, dark adapted, and suddenly seeing bright streaks or bursts of light behind closed eyelids, like tiny stars dancing just for you. Some describe them as luminous dancing fairies inside their vision. The mental impact can be heavy. In the claustrophobic stillness of space, each flash feels like a reminder. The void isn't just outside, it's passing through you. It's intimate and alien at the same time. And yet, even with a solid scientific explanation, the experience doesn't feel entirely ordinary. There's a haunting beauty in knowing that you're visualizing particles flying through you, a whisper from the far reaches of the cosmos. But while this may be unsettling, it's not the end. The next story is even more disturbing, because this time, the mystery isn't only inside the astronaut's head. Metallic spoon mystery. Jerry Linenger was no ordinary astronaut. During his 132-day mission aboard Russia's Mir space station, he looked out of the porthole more times than most would admit, and one sight stopped him cold. He reported seeing a metallic object, drifting in orbit, like a spoon, moving in a smooth, deliberate way. He didn't claim it was alien. Instead, he spoke carefully, as a trained naval officer and medical doctor, offering rational doubts. Maybe it was a piece of debris, or thermal insulation, or a fragment that had broken off the station. In microgravity, he noted, size and distance are nearly impossible to judge. What looks like a little spoon could be something far away, or something large, very close. Still, what disturbed him wasn't just the shape. It was how it moved. It didn't tumble like junk. It didn't drift slowly. It seemed to navigate, almost like it had a purpose. According to him, the motion was too methodical for random debris. Linenger later told a room of journalists, "In 5 months in space, I have seen unidentified flying objects for sure." He confessed that more than once he called his crewmates over. "What the heck is that?" He insisted he was not claiming little gray aliens or flying saucers, just acknowledging that something unidentifiable was out there. According to his own words, "Sometimes I looked out of the window and I could see a metallic thing like a spoon flying methodically. It could have been a spoon or a spaceship thousands of miles away." This haunted him. Was it a harmless piece of junk or something more mysterious? At the time, Linenger did not file any formal alien contact report. The memory remained partly personal, partly public. His statements spread through interviews and media, but no official UFO investigation was launched. For someone who'd floated in orbit, watched Earth spin below, inspected the delicate glass of Mir's windows, and seen a metallic object that behaved with intent felt deeply unsettling. In a world where most things drift randomly, this thing felt deliberate. And that, the possibility that not everything up there is junk and not everything is understood, is more than cold logic. It's the kind of quiet mystery that lingers long after the story ends. But the next mystery isn't just creepy. It raises a bigger question. How much do these spacefarers truly believe? And how much should we believe them? The Moonwalker. After hearing about knocks, floating snakes, mysterious music, flashes of light, and Lininger's spoon-shaped object, one astronaut's words tie many of these stories together. Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14 astronaut, and the sixth man to walk on the moon. Mitchell was a scientist and engineer. He wasn't someone who chased UFO stories for fun. He was trained to observe, calculate, and verify everything carefully. But after his moon mission, he spoke publicly about things he truly thought were real. He said he was 90% sure that some UFOs are not from Earth. These weren't wild guesses. He based his views on his own experience and reports from other trained astronauts. He shared that military insiders and colleagues at NASA had seen strange crafts. Mitchell believed that some of the odd things astronauts reported, the bright flashes, strange sounds, or objects floating in space, might be glimpses of something very unusual, something science didn't fully understand yet. Mitchell didn't describe panic or fear. For him, it wasn't about danger, it was about truth. "There is too much smoke here not to be fire," he said, meaning that when so many trained observers report strange events, it can't be pure coincidence. The things astronauts saw might be real, even if the exact nature is unknown. Think about it. Lininger saw a metallic object moving on its own. Musgrave saw something that looked alive outside his shuttle, and astronauts like Yang Liwei reported knocks with no explanation. Mitchell's words suggest these reports are not random. They could be pieces of a bigger, hidden picture, a truth that has remained secret from the public. For him, space was more than empty blackness. It was a place full of mysteries, strange phenomena that don't always fit the rules of science or expectations of reality. And when astronauts return to Earth, they bring back more than memories. They bring a sense that the universe is far stranger and less silent than most of us can imagine. This leads to the final chilling thought. Maybe the scariest part isn't what they saw. It's the silence, the quietness of space that keeps the truth just out of reach. The haunted silence of space. When you step back and look at all the accounts together, Yang Liwei's knocks echoing in the hull, Story Musgrave's writhing snake, Apollo 10's whistling music, the flashes dancing behind closed eyelids, Lininger's metallic spoon drifting deliberately. A chilling pattern begins to form. These aren't one-off anomalies or overactive imaginations. They are repeated, eerily specific, and deeply human experiences from men and women who have gone farther than any of us will ever go. Astronauts are not casual believers in the supernatural. They are engineers, doctors, pilots, scientists, trained to measure, to predict, to calculate every risk. Their lives depend on logic, on systems that leave almost no room for uncertainty. Yet when these professionals speak about what they experienced, their voices shift. They hesitate. They whisper. They describe things that don't make sense within any technical manual or engineering diagram. That hesitation is telling. It's the human reaction to something truly unknown. Some may argue these can all be explained. Pressure changes might cause knocks. Cosmic rays could light up a retina. Radio interference might produce strange melodies on a headset. Debris can drift in ways that seem intentional in microgravity. And indeed, these explanations exist. But here's the thing. Explanations don't erase the sensation. They don't erase the feeling of something watching, or moving with intent, or existing in the same space as a human being. It's just beyond the limits of comprehension. There is something profoundly unsettling about hearing a rhythm in the hull of a spacecraft, hundreds of kilometers above Earth, or seeing a snake-like creature float alongside you in the void, or being enveloped in music that has no source. There is something almost cosmic in the flashes of light. Reminders that the universe doesn't merely surround us, it passes through us, brushing the edges of our consciousness. And then, to see a metallic shape that seems to move deliberately in perfect silence is to confront an order in space that is neither ours nor entirely known. Perhaps the creepiest thing isn't the knocks or the flashes, the music or the spoon. Perhaps it's the silence that follows. Space is vast, dark, and impossibly empty. Yet these reports suggest it isn't empty at all. Something unseen drifts there. Something indifferent, yet undeniable. Something that leaves impressions on those who venture far enough from Earth. Astronauts return with data, with samples, with images of the planets and stars. But they also return with fragments of a larger mystery, a subtle unease, a sense that the universe is bigger, stranger, and more alive than we can ever fully understand. And maybe that is the real story. Space is not just a frontier of science. It is a frontier of the unknown. And the haunted silence of space whispers to those who dare to listen. Space is quiet again. The astronauts have returned. The lights of their spacecraft fade into the distance. And yet, what they saw out there will stay in human memory forever. It shows us that space isn't just empty blackness. It's full of mysteries that can't always be explained. What they witnessed reminds us how small we are and how much we still don't understand about the universe. So what do you think? Are these stories just tricks of the mind? Or something more real? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked this video, hit that like button and subscribe. Also, don't forget to turn on the notifications bell because we will be uploading more crazy stories like this one soon. Until then, see ya.